Welcome to the Musicians Insight podcast, where I sit down with musicians from all corners of the music industry. We talk about business, music, life, technique, equipment, anything really. My name is Jeff Jopic. I'm an Atlanta-based trumpet player and music educator. And today I have with me the incredible Louis Dowdeswell from London, England. If you don't know Louis, you should go look him up. We're going to be talking about a bunch of stuff today. Louis is, at least to me and the circle of musicians that I'm in, known for his incredible big band performances, videos, and work in that kind of stuff. But we've talked before, and I know he does a bunch of different things in the music industry. So I was wondering, Louis, how did you sort of get started? I know a lot of people know who you are and see your videos and you have millions of views and things like that, but where did everything sort of start with you, and how did you sort of get where you are today, what you're doing today?
Cheers, Jeff. Thanks for having me today. I'm very excited. We're going to talk some cool stuff, and thanks for getting me online. So for me, I started playing the piano when I was 4. And then I picked up the drums when I was 5, and then the trumpet when I was about 7. My mother is a music teacher. She used to be head of music at the school, my primary school I was at. And she was kind of. I've got 2 sisters, so one's a trombone player, one's a woodwind player / singer. And my little sister Maddie, trombone player, has just joined the Royal Air Force Band. During COVID, she had her first day on Monday, which is kind of cool.
Wow.
So it's been sort of been music everywhere, you know. And my mum ran a big band, started that in 1997, and it was just an opportunity. I was about 4 when that started, so we were just surrounded by it all the time. And really, mainly, I was actually a drummer for a very long time, more than a trumpet player. And I joined the Wells Cathedral School, which is a specialist music school, private school in the southwest of the UK, and I joined there as a trumpet player / drummer, and I was there as a boarder for a couple of years, away from the family, and then actually my sisters were there as well, but away from my mother, and that's a school that you get into you get scholarships and things like that to kind of reduce the fees to next to zero, because my mother had no money. And it meant that we all got an amazing musical education. And then, it was just kind of progression through that school. And then I moved to a different music school in Watford, where I currently reside, just 15 miles out of central London, called the Purcell School of Music, or Purcell School for Young Musicians. Drive past there every day to go to Costco whenever I go, which is quite cool. So it's cool to see that place still. Had a couple of years there as a sixth former, so 16, 17, 18, just before I went to music college. And I mean, for me, it was just, people ask me like, oh, what would you have done if you hadn't been a trumpet player, or, all that kind of thing. But I don't really know. I was just surrounded by music so much that it
sort of seems like that was your life from a very, very early age.
Yeah, pretty much. It's weird as well, because when that happens to you, you don't tend to get like a choice as to whether or not that's what you choose to do. It's just, I always wanted to be a pilot.
Wow.
I had a flying lesson before. I was very good, actually. I really enjoyed it, and I'm definitely going to be learning to fly properly before I'm 40. That's my plan anyway. I used to play Flight Simulator as a kid and all that, and I
love it.
I just wanted to be a pilot, but it just didn't. I just didn't, after a certain point, question the idea of being anything other than a trumpet player. I was quite good at school as well, so it felt like being a big fish everywhere I went. Just felt like if there was a career for it to take out of doing that, then I'll just do that. Was it for the love of it? Probably. But I'm not. You know what I'm saying. The choice was kind of made up for me, just based on like the like what I was in, and that's not a bad thing. I mean, being a musician, a professional musician, and it working out is a small chance anyway. But it's a cool life. You know, you might not earn the most amount of money.
But
You
you're
know,
having a whole lot of fun.
but well, it's fun and it's also not fun. But it's
Mm-hmm.
also like I think the most important thing is that it's an interesting life,
Mm-hmm.
right? You run a very interesting up and down life, and if it's something that you like and you can deal with that, then that's great. You know, my little sister, she's not like me, and she's a bit more sort of anxious about earning money and things like that. So she just wants to get a job that she can settle down in, have a family, and do all that, and that's super cool and important. And for her, she was earning plenty of money touring, but when COVID hit and everything, she just wanted to get a job that she could play the trombone in and just do that, and that was cool for her. And that's something that you don't tend to get very often in our industry. So it is a very interesting lifestyle, but it's certainly it can have its stressful times, if you see what I mean.
Well, it's
Um,
like it's a challenge every day, sort of like unless you have like a Broadway, West End like type job where you're playing the same show every night for at least a long
yeah,
time. You know, even if you're in an orchestra or big, it's always new music every day. It's always
yep,
new client every day, new challenge. Even like in that small little cosm of just reading music or making music,
yep,
it's always something different.
absolutely, yeah. And the other thing about sort of West End and Broadway shows is that people, you know, musicians are interesting people because to be a successful musician, you have to have something about you in the first place, I think. And it's interesting with like the Broadway show thing that without starting this podcast off in sort of a bitter or negative light, it when you put an interested person doing something effectively what would be considered mundane after say 10 years, what you end up with is like this clash um of attitude towards what it is they got into in the first place, if you see what I
Hmm.
mean. So there are always cons to every pro, and one of the best things about getting a show like that is its financial stability, but it comes with tons of anxiety, ridden things too, like having to find subs that can do it for you, or make not filling your quota of shows for the week or month, and therefore missing out on something that you really wanted to do that was outside it. So, it kind of is what it is, and it's a great thing to have, especially if you want to raise a family and do the other things, because it's consistent. But not really sure how we got here, but I think it's 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 just one of those things that everyone looks at and goes, "Oh, it would be amazing," But in reality, I know people have done the same show for 10 years in a row, and they're very interesting and interested people, and they don't feel very interested in the show anymore. So, yeah, you get my drift. But it's a very very cool, interesting, exciting career, and I'm very fortunate to have it. Even though it's been taken away from me ever so slightly this last year and a half, as with every other musician and also a lot of other people, or year I should say. But it's probably going to be about a year and a half altogether when we're all done and dusted with this mess. But I think, yeah, I didn't really know there was anything else I could do or should do, because when you're good at something, it feels as though you should kind of lean into that. And
Hmm.
and maybe I hadn't experimented with other stuff that I like as well. It's been a funny old time, COVID. It's made me reflect on a lot of other
Hmm.
things about the world,
Hmm.
about how much I've found I have other hobbies that I'm interested in. So
Well, you're building something in your backyard.
I'm
You're
building
doing a
all
lot of
sorts in
work.
my backyard. Yeah, I've got like 5 sheds back there now.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
So I'm having fun with all that, but that's a side project for me. Who knows? Maybe it'll be a side hustle one day.
Yeah, there you go.
Mm.
Well, I've seen, and I'm sure people who are aware of you, and I'm one of the people that have known about you for a long time, and I remember seeing there's like three Louis that I've seen on YouTube, like three stages or like types of. I remember when you were posting a lot of videos doing like the Wayne stuff,
Yeah.
trans, those lead lines, and how old are you then, and what were you doing then, and what sort of inspired you to do that? Why'd you sort of
I
gravitate
think the
towards that
first
stuff?
video was like maybe even the 30th or 31st of December 2010, I want to say.
Wow,
I'm pretty sure. Yeah. So like,
11 years ago. That's crazy.
yeah. Weird. Um, and so well, I think I was 16 when the first video went up. And I don't know. This is kind of before people used to do this, but now like you go on Instagram and there's someone playing the trumpet. And you didn't see that before, particularly on like because Instagram wasn't even a thing back then, and I don't know. It feels weird to have maybe been even a part of. I don't know. Maybe I'm reading into this too much, but it feels a bit strange thinking about maybe having been a part of this thing where people play their trumpet into their phone and then post a video of it on the internet, right? That was never my intention. Of course, before I did anything on there was the double C video, that everyone and their dog put up if they play a double high C. But I remember at the time, I think I was recording Hot Canary, the Maurice Andre version, just messing around in my bedroom, basically trying to figure out how to play it all. It's really high and difficult. And I recorded one of those, and I think I got the double high D in that or something. I was all like, wow. So then I put on Wayne Bergeron's Oh Holy Night and played along with that, and I got lucky. I hit a double high D, and I was like, right, okay, I'll put this on Facebook and see what people think. And I got a bunch of messages from people saying, oh, that's really cool, well done. And I think Simon Gardner told me to put it on YouTube, so I put it on YouTube, didn't think anything of it. And yeah, it's weird because there was this big hype all of a sudden. I started putting videos up every single day of me playing another transcription or something. And then there was this sort of weird hype around, what I was able to do at that age, which was cool. But didn't really think much of it, didn't really use it either. I just sort of, my platform was what it was. And I think after a few of those videos, I must have hit maybe 9,000 subs, which back then was more than it is now, but it's still not really anything. But to get 9,000 people to sub to you on YouTube, it's still 9,000 people that have actually seen your content, which is kind of weird when you're 17 or 18, particularly just playing high note trumpet, right? But then when I recorded the Let It Go video, is this the second thing that you're thinking of?
Well, I mean, the second thing that I was thinking of was like a really small part, just like a different age of you. The video I was talking about was the Oh Holy Night, like little tiny clip from when it looked like you were at school or something with a high D.
That's 2010. That's the end of 2010. Yeah.
Okay, just like the little like 10-second clip.
Oh.
That I watched like
band. Oh, yeah. No, that's
like in the backstage. You're in college or something like
college.
that.
Yeah. So that's a few years after those other ones. So the first ones were just like bits, like just transcriptions and things that I would play, and that's actually how I met Wayne in the first place. Actually, was that he sent me a message after I'd done some of his things. He was one of the 9,000 people, I guess, that had seen those videos.
Well, it's funny because back then, when you could do that on social media on the computer, everyone noticed. But now everybody and their brother is putting something up. Like Wayne's not going to go through every guy who's good at trumpet. And
I think also there was something maybe humbling for Wayne at the time that maybe there was a kid that was actually transcribing this stuff. That when people have done transcriptions of my things, it seems so surreal that someone would even do that, right? But it's very humbling and nice when they do. And so I was just that kid with Wayne, I was just taking his stuff down and playing it, and he thought that was really cool, and he got in touch over YouTube. Actually, I got the original message. It's really cool. And he sent me a load of his music, like a load of his charts. So then I started playing them down without having to transcribe them, which was nice. And then the next era of on the internet would have been, I guess, between 2012 and 2015, which was probably only maybe a handful of videos, 4 or 5 videos. There's little snippets. There's that
Mm-hmm.
high crime video,
Mm-hmm.
the Giro high crime thing I do with Tom Walsh and Ruben Fowler. And again, these are just, you got to remember, these at the time were just things that we were just messing around doing. But like, putting things on YouTube back then, when there was no Instagram, was just sort of what you did, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so I put those up, and they kind of got some traction. But as I say, I only had about 9,000 subs. It was only when I did Let It Go in 2015, I think it was.
Where it just exploded.
Yeah, it went really, really well. And what's weird to me is that there's like 79,000 subs now, which I know in the scheme of YouTube is really, really like small.
But the views are huge.
The views are huge. Yeah, the views are huge for a Trumpet video, which is cool. But I just think what's weird about it is that this is the thing that I haven't really talked about before, but I think it's quite important. If I hadn't put those original videos up in 2010, 2011 and got those 9,000 subs, one of the hardest things to do on the internet and on YouTube is to grow your fan base from 0 to something. And that something is like, had I put that Let It Go video out on my YouTube account with 10 subscribers,
could have gotten 100 views.
Yeah, and it would almost have probably wasted that video, right? I'm just speculating here, but I really do feel as though like just having that 9,000 sub base when no one saw anything I did for 6 years or something, and suddenly the video drops, right? And everyone gets alerted to a new video being dropped, and it just that 9,000 people is enough people to share it enough times for it to become relevant, and then it sort of takes on itself, right? And that's sort of the way I see this stuff going. And then when you have 80,000 subs, then as soon as you drop a video, 80,000 people are being notified that you dropped a video, and it never works out quite like, you know, I've got way too many views compared with subscribers. Like I haven't done enough things to get those two things linked up, but I know what the formula is. I just haven't done it yet. It's basically release more content. But you know, it's a funny old thing, the internet. It's a very humbling place. You know, people think that, you know, my 80,000, I'm not ungrateful for my 80,000 subs, but it's different as a trumpet player to other things, you know, gaming or DIY, or like there's just so many things that you can talk about, but you have a niche thing in the trumpet, and it's very cool to be a part of that community, and maybe have one of the more influential voices on the internet on it. I don't tend to use my voice very much for anything in particular, but I just like to drop things occasionally for people to check out, and if they like it, that's cool.
And especially in this time, like people can't really just go see music.
No.
Everyone's online on YouTube. You're watching videos of whatever musicians they like. It everything's up there, you know.
Yeah. I also find it weird, right? Because again, I don't want this to sound ungrateful, but to me, it just seems weird that anyone would be interested in anything I do, right? And this is
it's funny the two sides that you thinking that, and me on the other side going, "Are you crazy?"
Maybe this is a British thing as well, right? Because we're all sort of careful to not like, no one wants to hear what we got to say or what we want to do. No one's really that interested. But like, it really it doesn't, not based on the feedback I get. I always get great feedback, which is super awesome. But it feels odd to me that anyone would care about anything I'm doing at any point. It's also kind of the reason why I don't post as much as I should. I've actually just employed a social media sort of person to basically kick me when I don't post something, you know. But it's a weird world that I don't feel that connected to, because I'm not a consumer of it. I don't really consume social media in particular. I don't follow many people. I don't sort of look at. I'm too busy doing other things.
Real people stuff.
Say again?
Real people stuff.
Yeah, well, hopefully, you know. But it's cool to have a presence on it, and I should probably use it a little bit more. But It's one of those things. It's just time investment, and as I said, it just every time I post anything, every time I'm looking at it and I'm going, why would anyone care about
Well,
that?
did you
And then I
have
have to
the
be like, no, I have to like tell myself, I'm like,
just do
just
it?
press post, and then I feel like a silly ass for a while.
Did you do the arrangement or have the arrangement done for When You Wish?
Yeah, that's a Callum Howe arrangement. Yeah,
So, I mean, even just that. Is that one of your more watched videos?
yeah, I think it is. Oh, where are we at now? I don't know. When you wish, when Louis,
Yourself.
weird. 1.2 million on YouTube.
Yeah, that's that. I mean, that's pretty good. But not only that, but like my swing band that I'm in Auburn, Alabama, got that arrangement and performed it at one of our like reunion concerts. You
Yeah,
know, you look up the Disney All American College Band, and Wayne does it every year with the lead trumpet player there. And
yeah.
I mean,
That was a really good video for us actually. Uh, I just asking Wayne to do it was cool, and him being up for it was wicked.
mhm.
But Callum wrote that arrangement in, I think, 2 hours. I said,
Gorgeous arrangement, gorgeous
it's
arrangement.
lovely. Yeah, I said right. Let's do When You Wish Upon a Star in that old Ted Heath type duet style thing. A little bit like Memories of You, And Callum was like, okay, I know how he like, I know how it's gonna go.
Yeah.
And then 2 hours later, it was in my email. So I was like, oh, okay. Checked it out. It was perfect. And I mean, this is also the period of time when Callum decided that he wasn't going to write anything with key signatures. Everything he wrote was just going to be without key signatures. I remember the first trumpet part of that arrangement finishes. It goes one bo do 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 ba bo wee bo where, and where the lead trumpet goes bo where, it's written on the page, okay, with accidentals, so no key signature. G sharp to B sharp. I'm like, Callum, really? Can you have just written A flat to C or G
Mhm.
sharp to C? Anyway, he's a bit of a stickler for those things, bless him. But he's come out of his no key signature phase. Um, but it's yeah, he wrote that in a couple of hours, and it did really well because I tell you what happened specifically when that video came out was that once Wayne was featured on the channel properly, it legitimized my channel to people that maybe wouldn't have watched. This video also got like 1.5 million views on Facebook in a couple of weeks, and then a week and a half or something. So that it went pretty mental on Facebook. This was the first video that went crazy,
Mhm.
properly crazy in our world. Let It Go did kind of fine, but it was like the first one. So once people had subbed on to see more of those, then it just sort of got
Mhm.
exponentially bigger, right? And then The Incredibles was the really big one. Um,
Mhm.
but When You Wish Upon a Star legitimized the channel as far as professional trumpet players from all around the world seeing it as something that was not just a gimmick.
Well,
Um,
and band directors and all these. I mean, Callum's writing is unbelievable. Like it's
yeah,
fantastic to listen to. But the reason people play or know about that or want to do it or have any reference for what it should sound like is because of your video, which is a
yeah,
big. I mean, that's a big deal. I think.
yeah. It is cool, and when I think about the Big Fat Band as being probably the biggest inspiration directly to this band. Maybe not my biggest inspiration ever, and maybe single-handedly my biggest inspiration ever, but not like 51% of my inspiration, if you see what I mean.
Mhm, mhm.
Um, the um, the thing is I remember when that band started in '99, and I remember when everyone got really excited about it, started buying the charts. And every blow band, every rehearsal band would buy the chart and try and play it and
Mhm.
fail. But the thing for me was this was all the success that's come from this project. None of that was intended, right? None of the you know people get the chart and play it in their rehearsal band. That none of that was intended. That was just like an off the side thing. That was like we'll just let people get the chart if they want it, and then they can play. And then the other thing that has really surprised me about the channel massively has been like just the vast amount of children that have checked the stuff out. Like that was not intended, and that's really cool because the majority of people on the internet probably are children. I mean, YouTube, because they live on YouTube. They don't really watch television anymore, children. So when they come across something like this, and it gets hit on their algorithms and they check it out, and the fact that they're inspired by it, that's the coolest thing, because none of that was planned. Like, we didn't do Let It Go because we thought kids would watch it. We did Let It Go because we thought that it was a tune that was popular enough for it to be, for some people to bother checking it out.
And it lends itself to sort of that genre. It definitely
exactly. Like, it worked really well in this case. But I just get like videos from fans all the time with their little kids dancing their head off to my version of it, which is just like that wasn't planned. Like, oh yeah, we'll target the 7-year-olds. That wasn't planned.
We're gonna put in 6 months of work.
Yeah,
6-year-olds all over the world will love my trumpet playing.
But if it inspires any of them to pick up those instruments, then that's worth it. Do you know what I mean? So that's a cool side thing that we didn't kind of expect to be the case. So
and I know you do. I would say you probably know this. You're probably most known for that stuff on YouTube. That's probably what people ask you about a lot. But I know you do a lot of other work in other styles and genres and settings. Where was I going with that? One thing that I really wanted to talk to you about, because I've talked to you a little bit recently about like specifically lead trumpet playing, right? We've done a little bit of talking about that. But the difference in your head between solo playing, like Eric Mishira, Wayne Bergeron, that kind of stuff, and lead trumpet playing. Do you have any thoughts on that, like equipment wise, leading the band, what goes through your head, sound, those types of things?
Yeah, I mean, we'll start it off with like sideman versus frontman, or artist versus tradesman. We talked a bit about that, being a tradesman, and like to what degree your career is dedicated to being a sideman. And how much
I've loved that tradesman artist. I've been bringing that up with like everybody. That's been like revolutionary. I love that.
I'm surprised people don't talk about it more, particularly from like the session musician perspective. Like, you look at somebody like the guitarist Steve Lukather, right? He's done solo albums, but he's also played on everyone's album, like everyone's. Jay Graydon, another guitarist. It's a little different for drummers because there are some like John Robinson, the drummer, JR, David Foster's main guy and has played on pretty much everything as well. Like, yeah, he's got a solo album or 2 or 3, but like, it's different for guitarists and even like session singers, so like, to what extent do you sort of be a tradesman, and to what extent do you become an artist or a sideman and a frontman? And again, like, it's weird. I didn't think that I would ever be a front man. It's, for me, playing the trumpet is about playing with other people. I love playing with my friends and hearing my friends play and being really excited, inspired by them. But the difference between that soloist thing and the lead trumpet thing is that the lead trumpet player shouldn't be noticed, and the soloist should be.
That's a really good thought. That's not something that I think about all the time. Because like everybody who plays high notes sort of goes, yeah, I can play this lead chart, this chart from a big band, and I can play, Gonna Fly Now. And it's sort of like, I can do this as opposed to like the two distinct roles that you said.
Yeah, well, one is a role and one isn't a role. One, the lead trumpet is a role. The soloist is, you do whatever says you the most. Now, we talked a little bit about this on a masterclass recently about what I consider to be like what me personally conceptually consider to be like how I perceive great like solo trumpet. And I'm not talking like improvisation necessarily. Like that's another thing, but it also goes into your voice. I think you helped me with that phrase as well, the voice, and being a great solo trumpet player, like classical trumpet players. Some of them are great solo trumpet players, but then also some of them are really great principal trumpet players, and that's the same thing. That's the difference between when I refer to Eric and Wayne and Doc Severinsen. Of course, they're all great lead trumpet players, but or Arturo Sandoval, like these guys that they all possess like incredible ability to play in the upper register, but it's more that when they're playing their solo stuff, it's what they're doing musically that is the interesting bit. Like the improvisation is part of that, but it's not everything. Right? It's how they hold themselves on stage. It's how they behave on stage. It's the other thing that being a front man does, especially if you have a band behind you, is you've got to churn that band's energy. Like
I've been watching recently. I just found videos of your big band playing some of your charts. I think I watched 2 different versions of The Incredibles. Right. You look like you're running a marathon or like a 100-meter dash. I mean, you have so much energy. You're like back behind you, up to the front, hit a double, whatever, and then back behind you, bring a solo and stuff. It's cool, and you're jumping up and down, and you're into it. I love it. It's like, well, you don't see a lot of that even really in the trumpet world. That's kind of special, kind of unique. I would say.
Maybe, but I'd say my theory behind this. It's kind of that's more like me in my. Wow, I'm in my late 20s now, right? But that's more me in my very early 20s, late teens. That's kind of me on stage, but it's not an act, right?
Mm-hmm,
but because for some people it is, but it's totally genuine what you see there. None of it's an act. It's maybe explosive. It's maybe slightly exaggerated, but the reality is that if you this is only something I found out after running the band a couple of times. We've only done like 3 or 4 gigs, and I've only been a band leader that many times. I've never done it before. I've never conducted in my life, But and I'm not a very good conductor, but you just be clear, and that's all that the guys need. They're good enough. They don't need to be conducted, right? Mm-hmm. But the beauty of that energy thing, I realized, was when you're jumping around like a lunatic at the front of the stage and everyone's looking up, they're not looking at their path, they're looking up, right? They're looking for energy, they're looking for purchase, they're looking for someone to give them the permission to kind of not do what they want, but like
go for it.
To have, yeah, pretty much that, right? Like, if I'm jumping around like an idiot at the front of the stage, I hope that they might play like that too. Mm-hmm. And there's something to be said for that. If you watch Maynard, right, and I'm not doing this because Maynard did it. Like, I'm just being completely. I don't tend to do that with so much with bands when I go and play as a guest soloist. Mm-hmm. And I don't like when I take my band out. And this isn't because the bands I play with aren't great as a guest soloist. They absolutely are. But when I've got a really solid relationship with my band, right?
You're comfortable.
Yeah, and I'm also and I know they're playing really well, so I know how to to make the gig right. When I go out with my band, I feel like I can just relax into the gig, and this is the other thing, right? This is the same for like pop stars, right? It's a bit different because I'm playing the music director's chair as well, which is a whole gig on its own. But like, I'll tell you one thing, and since doing this as a front man, I'll be very honest in this podcast. It's quite interesting being so honest, but I watch other trumpet players in front of bands completely differently now. I judge them completely differently. it's very easy on the internet to watch like a performance in itself, right? There's some bad videos of me playing on the internet, and
I haven't found them.
well, I know where they are. I won't tell you where they are, but there are a couple, right? And I actually asked the guy who put them up. I asked him if he wouldn't put them up because I had a cyst on my top lip, and I had to go out and play in front of 2,000 people as a soloist for something a few years ago. I had to take about 25 days off after that.
Wow.
I was pus, and also it was really bad. It was really bad. I thought I'd never play again. It was one of those, right? And that was captured, right? And they even captured some of the rehearsal and put it on the internet. And I was struggling to get a note out of the horn, let alone play Give It One, right? So there is some bad stuff of me on the internet, right? And I'm not making an excuse, but what I have realized from being a frontman is that the funny thing is when you're in that situation, you've got 18 guys that you've employed to come and do something, and you're standing in front of the band, and you're rehearsing the band, you're speaking to the soundcheck guy, you're dealing with the person that's booked you, the promoters, you're dealing with this, that, and the other. You've got to make sure everyone's got food, you've got to make and you have not even considered playing the trumpet yet at this point. You literally not even considered it. Like, oh, my trumpet's over there, I've counted the band off, I better get it out. It's literally like that. It really is, and sometimes that, it's really hard to actually prepare for that environment, okay? Now, the gig I'm referring to in particular, I was genuinely in a bad place for my playing because I had a medical problem, right? But the thing about not thinking about the trumpet, I mean, the first gig I ever did with my band, I proposed to my wife.
It's a little. I remember doing that. It's a little bit stressful.
But I had the ring in my pocket the whole gig. I haven't done it. It was an album launch, right, for high school, and I was like, the whole gig, like.
I can't even imagine that. I blacked out. I can't even imagine having to play beforehand.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
But you know what I mean? It's like the extra pressures that you put yourself on, and you've got to make sure the band's playing well and you've rehearsed efficiently. This music's not easy. So, and I haven't really talked much about lead trumpet there, but these are sort of weird little insights that maybe people are interested in, or maybe it's interesting to hear that like. That is genuinely how I feel when I'm on the stage with my band. I could jump around. It's really fun. And if I let myself go and think, like, no matter what I do, people are just going to like it. If I do it to myself, it's fine. But I am self-conscious, up there. It's a weird place to be. People just sit there, with their arms folded, just like watching you, and you're jumping around like a hooligan. But it always pays off at the end because if you can get them clapping and joining in at the end of the gig after they've seen you with all that energy, hopefully they have similar levels of it. So, and also it definitely gets the best out in the band. I've stood in front of band leaders who just stand there, conducting around, and it's just sort of like, well, whatever. And you kind of give as much energy into the gig as they are. So you get back what you give in. So I just give everything in and hope to get back what I get back. But it's an interesting thing, the whole frontman side, and of course the opposite. When you're a sideman, you just got to shut up and just do and be anonymous. No one wants to hear personality in the band. Even as much as people say that they do. Of course, like if you're booked to play, what you are. But there's Frank Sinatra and the Rat Pack guys, for example, out the front. That the attention's on them. Mm-hmm. And your job is completely different. So you have to just kind of think about those things. And no one seems to talk about that because not many people cross over into both domains. Mm-hmm. They really don't. Not even Wayne runs his own band. So he'll go and be a guest soloist. But he doesn't run a band. You look at Gordon Goodwin, for example, right? He's fantastic in the front of the band. He's a very fluent speaker. He has a lot of energy. Like, I remember standing at the back of his band playing, lead trumpet and playing Rhapsody in Blue, and his energy, at the front of the band. And then there's this like and like Gordon's arms are going crazy, and then he just points at you and goes, "Where?" And you just hold this high F, and you just got to be like, "Where?" If he was just standing there, like,
there would be
nothing.
nothing.
The adrenaline is not kicking in.
Mm-hmm.
The adrenaline for me at that point, you know, and then like you see his arms go up. It's like, "Where?" And there's this massive explosion of energy, and that all comes from Gordon. It comes from no one else. The audience aren't doing anything, you know, like, and without him up at the front of the stage, on it, jumping up and touching the floor. I mean, that's as much energy as he's giving off. That's how he gets out of the band, and that's what you need. And that's something that I hadn't thought about until I started loosening up on the front of the stage. If you loosen up, it's a bit easier. And you just kind of, I mean, I'm the worst dancer in the world, but if you groove to your own stuff, right?
Yeah.
Hopefully that sort of, yeah, even at least tells the audience that it's acceptable to enjoy it. And also, I'm kind of an informal guy, you know, so I find myself in a slightly uncomfortable situation when I'm standing in a concert hall and there's a very formal gig going on. Everyone's sat down. I want my gig to be very energetic. I want people to have a drink. I want people to enjoy it. It's kind of part of the reason why I've chosen not to do any live streams with my band, because I want the experience of seeing my band to be like this perfect energy thing where you're standing there. It's very easy to judge a band in a very different way when you're sat 8 hours behind in your boxes watching it through a couple of cameras and bad headphones. You know, it's a completely different experience to one where you're there and you're just, it's loud and you're sort of bustling up with people and you've got a pint in your hand. And like, I'm not saying that's how every gig experience should be, but I think that's how my gig should be received at best, if you see what I mean. And of course, like, you can cater the gig, you know, if it was for kids, for example, like, you would change it, but you'd change it in many ways as well. But like, you know, particularly with what you might be playing. But you see what I'm saying? It's it's a funny old thing. I haven't actually really mentioned lead trumpet, but I think that's the main difference, right?
Yeah.
One is to be noticed and one is to be not. And
that's something that people need to hear. I needed to hear that because it's not something it's something I know, but not something I consciously think of all the time.
There's a fantastic video that Gia Washington Wright put up on Facebook yesterday, and Chuck Finney's playing lead trumpet on it. I can't remember what it is, but it's just a video of the section, and Chris Tedesco is the guy you can see most of, just looking down the section. And Chuck sounds unbelievable. He sounds it's so swinging, it's so accurate. The vib that he's using is fantastic, so intense, but you don't notice him. There's something beautiful about that. And it's the same thing I was saying about Simon Gardner, like in the masterclass. It's exactly the same thing. And this is just like a magic touch. I can't do that. It's unbelievable. Like, to know, or even if they don't know, they might not even know. That this is the other thing. This is why it's magic, right? To just play and place things in a way that just feels perfect. Like, you can't even question it. That's the thing that is unbelievable. It's the same for a drummer when they just go ting ting to ting ting to ting, and it just feels amazing, right? Yeah, of course they've probably honed that down, but that's their voice, right? And when that feels great, it's amazing.
Well, and they might not know it,
yeah,
but everyone they play with knows that when they play with them.
Exactly, and this is the thing, like, I'm sure Chuck and Si know exactly what it is they're doing, but you know what I'm saying? It's like, there's that thing where it's so locked in with what is musically correct that you don't notice it. And that is, I think a lot of lead trumpet players should hear that. It's the same thing for a drummer. Like, if you notice a drummer, they're overplaying. You know, like, if you notice them because they sound amazing because you're a drummer, that's kind of different, right? But like, if you notice them, if they're overly noticeable, then there's a problem with that. And it's the same. If you can hear the lead trumpet, more than the band, then they're overplaying.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the hardest thing. And it changes with the band as well. Like if the band isn't up to it,
Mm-hmm.
and you're like Maynard's band, I don't know because I haven't heard them because I wasn't really alive when they were playing much, but like apparently they were a really loud band,
I
you
can
know.
imagine.
So if they're a really loud band, right, the lead trumpet player has scope to play loudly,
Mm-hmm.
but you don't want to be the only voice that you hear in a band, because the music isn't asking for it. So that's kind of the most important thing I think when it comes down to like elite lead trumpet playing. Anyway, is just knowing where to put everything. Not a time is another thing, but like knowing where you fit and not overdoing it. It's that is an art, despite being a trade.
It's confusing.
Yeah.
I have one more short question for you.
Hmm.
Do you listen to your own stuff?
That's a cool question.
What do you like? Yeah. What are your thoughts on that? Because when I play something that sounds good, I listen to it over and over because I'm like, yeah, I really did it
Yeah,
there.
yeah, man. Yes, I do, but not in the same way that I think a lot of people would.
Not for fun in the car.
The only track that I put on for an energy boost is Into the Unknown.
Love it. Love
But
that one.
but but that's only because I think it's so cool.
Yeah.
Like and that's not, I don't even care about the trumpet. I honestly don't. I care
Yeah.
about like Jake on the guitar, Greg on the kit, and Lawrence on the bass. It's just ridiculous, um, and the arrangement's so cool. I just yeah, and I'm also really proud of that mix. That's my best mix. And I spent a long time on it, and the video was really cool. It took me a long time, right? I don't really watch the videos, although that video in particular, if you watch that video along with the track, and you got the track up real loud, the bit like the second chorus or something with the thing that bounces in the middle of the screen,
Hmm. Hmm.
um, that's like I'm quite proud of that. It it feels really satisfying to watch, you know.
Yeah.
Um, but with regards to the other stuff, no, I don't. My favorite thing of all of the things I've ever recorded, uh, as an artist, um, uh, is the end of Game of Thrones. The bit that isn't Game of Thrones.
Hmm. Hmm.
So the bo wee ba doo doo wee da doo 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 dee doo, and it's just got this rising pattern. Bo wee doo 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 wee doo doo doo, and like the band is like
Hmm.
and it's so hip. Like, and I remember saying to Cal at the time, I was like, "Can you just write me this like raising line like for 16 bars?" And he's like, "I've got an idea of what you mean. You know what I mean? Just like raise, like going up and up." And Callum has a tendency to write too many intervals for me sometimes, just because I don't like intervals.
Hmm.
But this was like perfect. Like it was the perfect combination between like steps, like, and the way it grew
Hmm.
was just so cool. And like we were putting it through the demos and checking it out, trying to get it right, and then I was like, right, let's get 4 percussionists. And I used to be a percussionist, so I was like, oh, I'm going to play as well. We got all these like djembes together, these big,
Hmm.
set it all up remote at Royal College of Music, and then just like went crazy in the last 32 bars, just like
Yeah.
smashing this stuff. And there's so much energy in that track, and it's one of the tracks that's probably the least known, least well known.
Hmm.
It's too long. It's got one of the best flautists in the world is playing the solo on it, but the solo's too long, and I've learned since then that audience retention is poor. Everyone's got
Hmm.
awful attention spans, so I mean, you have to do that. You have to figure out whether you want, your integrity or you want views and all that. You've got to figure
Yeah.
those things out. So I think, generally speaking, that album's got pretty good balance of that sort of stuff. But that track in particular, it takes too long to get to those
Yeah.
16 bars, and those 16 bars at the end are, I mean, it's worth the wait. It's so
Hmm.
cool. So like that, and I don't listen to The Incredibles. I can't remember the last time I listened to The Incredibles. The ones I listen to most are Into the Unknown, The End of Game of Thrones, and Keep Calm and Carol On.
Okay. I would say the one that I listen to by far the most is Bridge Over Troubled Water.
Oh, that's a great chart.
I love that. I love that one. That was great.
That's got a good moment at the end as well. Like, well, they've all got good moments at the end, but I think the one I probably listen to least is Circle of Life, even though I love that tune. That was a hard tune to get sounding right. It's a bit of a weird thing. I listened to it the other day and I thought actually that worked out pretty well. But I listen to music. I listen to my own music now to criticize it, to critique it. You know, for my own head. You know, when I listen back to my first mix of Let It Look at the old Logic file that I was using, it's like unbelievably embarrassing. You know, it's an absolute disgrace. But that's only because I've, you know, the other thing is, I should say, is that like if you're recording this stuff and you're mixing it, you're editing it, you're putting a video, the last thing you want to do is listen to it once it's out. When it goes out, I do not listen to it. Like for a year, I do not even go near it. Yeah, I don't go near it. It's too much. Into the Unknown, I worked on non-stop at the beginning of lockdown for, I want to say 2 months, and there were periods where I was doing 9 hours a day on it for like 4 or 5 weeks. But the thing about the video thing on Into the Unknown is that I tried some new video techniques, and even though it probably doesn't look like I did a lot of different things, I learnt a lot doing that video from how to use different things. And I think I spent about 4 or 5 weeks on that video. Only about a week doing the video, but about four weeks researching different things, all hours of the day, just to because everything I want to release, I want it to be better than the last thing I did, and that's hard.
It's hard when your first one's frozen. I mean, you know, let it go.
Well, everyone's making bloody big band videos now. Do you know what I mean? It's like, you know, and people are doing fantastic jobs with videos. I've seen some amazingly creative videos. I'm not particularly creative with the videos because I don't find them that interesting to do. It's also like if audio was time consuming, like video, you know, that's a whole other thing. But I don't listen to them for fun, really. I listen to them to find out what I did wrong and then fix it in the next one. And sometimes when I'm feeling like nostalgic and proud, I might put some of my own stuff on, or I might occasionally scour through, particularly during the COVID, scour through some of my Instagram and check out some of the things I did, and because really only the best stuff I do goes up there. So I always look back at that and go, God, I can't do that anymore. Do you know what I mean? Of course I can, but it's just when every single thing that you put up on the internet is the best you can possibly do.
Your highlights,
start realizing like, whoa, you know,
that double C video, that like Pit double C video that you put up hashtag double C at the end, where you just
was that on your feet?
Yes.
Yeah,
that was nice.
Yeah, and I don't know how I did that, because, and I did that every night. That show killed me. You know, I loved it and it really worked me hard. But I feel as though, like, I did that just before my wedding, and then I went away on my honeymoon and all that. So I feel as though I got my chops really solid and set for that show, and then I went away and like lost it all. You know what I mean? And now since COVID, I can't imagine doing that. But that's the thing I'm most excited about doing when I get back to playing properly, is because I'm not doing, like, I'm doing playing here and I'm working a bit, but nothing, like, everything I'm doing I can do it at my own time, so there's no pressure to get it right there and then, you know. One thing I'm really excited about is just doing a week of shows on lead trumpet and seeing through the week how I progress to getting back to my best, and then what it's like to be at my best. You know what? One thing I've learned about how to do during COVID.
What's that?
Is how to play the trumpet after not playing the trumpet for a week.
It's probably not something you've dealt with in years.
Since I was 15 or 16, I haven't taken a week off the trumpet, literally, until COVID. And I was one of those guys that if I didn't play every day, I had to play every day. If I took one day off, the following day was a disaster. Like, seriously, like one day off the trumpet messed me up completely. It was almost like I just had to like keep my chops swollen or something, to be comfortable. And never really in pain, but just like, and when COVID hit, like everyone, you just lose the will to keep playing for no reason, And this is different. This is the difference between being a professional player and an amateur. Because the amateur always has this. The amateur always has the feeling that there's no real point in doing it other than the fact that they absolutely love it. And I wish that it was like that for me all the time. Sometimes I feel really inspired to play and I can't wait to get the horn out of the case. And that's great, right? But when it's something you have to do for a living, that goes away pretty quickly. And
I've heard that from a lot of people, like professional trumpet players who have put on social media, like, why am I doing this again? I could just go get a job.
Right, and it's great, but it's true. It's hard to stay motivated when there's no reason to play. There's literally no, other than like the odd session that comes in here, and maybe I need to do a record because I'm planning on it. I've got, as I said, I've got a load of other stuff going on, foundations I'm trying to set for other things in my life, so that my process to making more music for you guys is more streamlined. Because right now everything is a bit like I have a studio over here and that, and COVID, and bought a house, doing it up, blah blah blah. There's just too many things right now for me to focus on doing something better than my last record when I had a bit more time back then. And so I'm trying to get the foundations for other stuff down, and then I feel like I'm just going to go crazy and get this record churned out, and it's going to be awesome. But it's weird being a trumpet player right now because, as I said, it feels as though there's very little point in picking the horn up from day to day. So I'm very good now at not playing for a week and then playing. So going back to what I was saying before, like, I can't wait to play for a week and need to. Like, I love the feeling of stress associated with being put on the spot musically and being told to just do it. You can't make a mistake. I really thrive under that adrenaline and that pressure. Some people don't. I don't thrive under other types of pressure, but that pressure where you sit in a show first time, you're shaking, right? You've got to do a week of it on the trot, and you've never played it before, other than in your bedroom at home, along with a little MP3. Everything feels differently, and it works. For me, it's really great, and I can't wait to be in that position again. And that that's something I figured out the last week or two. That was just like, I just need to go to work and actually go. I don't care what it is. I just need to go to work. It's great having the odd session, but it doesn't feel like I would be out with my horn every single day pre-pandemic, and it just felt normal. And now it's not like that, and it's been fine for a year. I kind of got used to it, really, and part of me doesn't want to go back to work, like everyone. But the reason I really want to go back is to make sure that this is my chops have
survived,
and they're the same, right? You cannot manufacture that working environment in your bedroom. You just can't. And this is one of the other things that sort of determines whether or not you're an amateur or a professional, is that you might be the best trumpet player in the world, but if you can't pull it off when someone tells you need to, in the worst possible conditions, then you're in trouble, right? So, yeah, funny thing. Do I listen to myself? That was the question, right? 15 red herrings. Yeah, I listen to myself occasionally, but not for the same reason that other people listen to me. Except for those 3 occasions where I really like the charts, and I think they're pretty cool. So.
Well, I have a ton of other things that I'd love to talk to you about, but I know that it's, what now, 10 o'clock over there, right?
Yeah.
something like that, and you have a life. And I'm very grateful that you came on here and shared all of that. I took a
Well,
lot.
hopefully, I feel as though maybe I was a little more bitter than I would
No,
usually
no,
be.
no.
I don't feel bitter. It's a funny old time to be a trumpet player, right? And
Yeah,
I feel as though that was a kind of honest podcast
yeah.
about some interesting issues that maybe you wouldn't get the truth from other people about.
Or in a good time, when
Yeah,
everything's going great.
yeah. Well, things that, as I say, I I'm the sort of person that will try and make the most out of any bad situation, but and I don't tend to sort of sit and mope about things. Really, I haven't seen this period of time as particularly negative, just different, right? It's just been very
Absolutely.
different. And the other thing I've noticed is that I spent more time with my wife. I spent more time with my cats. I've thought about a lot of things. I've learnt a ton of new skills. Oh my gosh, right, so many new skills, and I'm really happy about that. But and the other thing is, like, I've realized, and I think people should take a bit more. If anyone could take anything away from this, and they don't already think this, like, COVID's going to be gone in the next 6 months, and that's a good thing. Like, it won't be gone, but it, for the sake of argument, it's gone for the next in hopefully 6 months' time, and we're all going to go back to doing what we did before, hopefully. But this period of time has felt a little bit for me like, and everyone will have dealt with this in a different way, like like college, like university, where you have unlimited time.
What did you do with it?
Well, exactly, like, you will never get this time again, ever. And I'm not saying that everyone wants this time again, but you'll never get it again.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, but there's absolutely tons of positives that can be got from this. Like, when I talk about time, I don't mean like time in time. I mean like you're at your time. Like, there's, you could spend your entire life stressing about the situation, or you can, or complaining that it's happened to you, right? But in reality, it's happened to everyone. And the first thing that happened when COVID hit, Callum said to me, I thought this was really interesting. He said, right, this has happened. Now we need to double down on our productivity. And I was like, oh, really? Well, everyone's halving. And he said, exactly. He said, everyone else is slowed down because they can't be bothered and they think that they're going to get free money from the government and they're just going to sit there and do nothing. He said, so we need to take advantage of that and notice that no one else is going to do anything. So let's use that to jump even further ahead, right? That's the idea. So, and for me, that's come in loads of different ways, like learning lots of DIY and feeling really confident around the house, doing stuff, and like stuff that I would genuinely never have learned, ever have learned, had this period of my life not been there. So if there's one thing that anyone can take away from this is, like, don't take this time for granted, because even though it's clearly worse than what it was before, like, it's an opportunity that
no one's ever had before.
Exactly. We got some neighbours, right, that we met during the pandemic, because we moved in to our new house during the pandemic, and they're like our best friends now. And one of them's a photographer, one of them's a carpenter, and I would never have met them properly had we been doing our usual jobs, because they finish work, come home, we go to work, come home at midnight, wake up, they go to work, we mess around all day, we're doing whatever it is that we're doing in the house, and they go to work in the evening. But the fact is, we've been blessed with this opportunity to meet them properly and do what we do, and they've been godsend for us, So it's there are definitely positives that could be taken out of this time, and the fact that I'm doing all these interviews with different people as well, all these podcasts and things, none of this would have happened. You wouldn't have done this without COVID. So there are some interesting things to come from this, I think, and this has been a reflecting hour or so, I would say, at least for my part. But
well, I'm glad.
Hopefully people find it interesting anyway. I'm just.
I think they will. I
be honest. Will. This is the honest side of what we do.
There you go. Well, I really appreciate it. I hope we can do another one of these at some point.
Yeah, another one with the rest of your questions or your suggestions. But it's been fantastic, Jeff. Really enjoyed it, and I'm gonna go have a beer. And then go to bed.
Absolutely. Sounds like a great plan. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Louis. I will catch you later.
Yeah. Awesome, Jeff. Thanks so much, mate. I'll see you later.
Have a good one. Bye.
Bye-bye.